Hey there, welcome to Contracts and Chaos. My name's Alyssa.
And I'm Brenna, and we're here to tell you that you are not alone in the mayhem of this real estate industry.
We're keeping it real and sharing our stories, strategies, and successes in today's real estate world.
So come join us every Tuesday while we talk contracts and chaos. All right, let's dive in. Yes, we are talking database today.
That's exactly what I was just going to say. Is we are talking databases and not necessarily how to utilize it yet. We'll get into that in future episodes. But today we're going to talk about how to double your database, how to get more people into it, because they say statistically, the more people in your database, the more successful your business is. What do you think, Brenna? Do you have like a robust database of people?
I guess I wouldn't call it robust. For me, my database is a lot of people from back home and local people that I've worked with in the past. So I have a lot of clients, past clients, but my database, the biggest chunk of my database is actually leads that I purchased my first year in real estate, and I'm still plugging away at them. So this year, actually, just recently, I've really been trying to focus on dialing it in more hyper local to me where I'm at, specifically my school district and our immediate town. And I did that with a fun little Christmas thing that I think we talked about already with the Christmas lights, but trying to really get granular with my neighborhood.
Yes, I think that's important is like you can set up a database and just like blanket send emails, and we're going to talk about more specific on how to use your database next week. But if you're not dialing it down and not making it specific to that person or like even the area they live in, then it's useless. Okay, but so if you're correctly using your database, I'm not going to say you don't need other lead sources, but you don't need to lean on them as heavily. So it's important to and you don't want it as many people as possible, but to get as many people who match your client avatar as possible. I think that's important to remember. Like, again, we don't want to just spam people with random emails, but we also don't want just random people in our database, because if I'm trying to sell, we're just going to use boats as an example, in Miami, I don't want to be talking to people who like snowmobiling in Maine. So we want to make sure the people coming in either match our avatar or know people who match our avatar and are going to share the information that we are conveying.
I think that people get hung up on the quantity over quality at this point, and it is a numbers thing. The more people you have in your database, in your email list, that kind of thing, the more return you will get. But this isn't just let me add my best friend from second grade into this,
right?
Because I have her email address from when we were 12,
Exactly.
I don't think that that's going to move your needle at all in the direction of where you want to go. So quantity is not necessarily the focus here. And I do believe that your open rate, your conversion rate, people paying attention to what you're sending them, whether it's a card, an email, that kind of thing, goes into quality as well. We're not just sending blind postcards and things like that. If you can get real specific with what they are looking for and what they are needing, you're going to see a better return on that.
Agreed. Like I said, yeah, you want to narrow it down. You don't want it to just be anyone, because those people, unless you know that Susie from high school is going to read what you're sending and share it with people who are your avatar, then you're just and you also, I think you need to think like they may not be the right person now. They could be eventually, but that's where it comes to narrowing down what you're sending as well. And we'll talk about that next week. So this week we have 5 tips on how to double the size of your database with people who fit your avatar and that you're going to want to do business. So the first one is online events. Things like first-time homebuyer seminars or listing seminars, something that's going to get people who are already kind of thinking about doing what you want them to do. And that kind of sounds weird, but like, I don't want people in my seminar who, if I just said, oh, like, come just have a happy hour with me. No, I want to dial this in. So this is going to market to people who want to do what you're talking about, and it narrows down that audience. So you can host it on YouTube, you can host it on Zoom, You're going to advertise it online, say, a home buyer seminar. You could set it up on Eventbrite if you wanted to, so that it opens it up to a pool of people who aren't in your sphere of influence already, but who still want to do whatever it is that the seminar is about, whether or not it's home buying, refinancing, all those things. Then record that training. So if you're utilizing Zoom, record it. And then later you can use it, post it in your social media and say, hey, DM me for this training and I'll send you the recorded version. It's another great way. Again, there are people who are already thinking about doing that thing, whether it's, again, home buying, refinancing, whatever your topic is. Then if you want to, you can post it on YouTube. That will give you evergreen content. So people who are using YouTube as a search engine, which is pretty common these days, to get information, you'll pop up. And do this as often as you want. Some people say do it weekly. Obviously, we know time blocking, put it where you can, put it where it makes the most sense for you so that you're actually effective with this. Because if you're just half-assing it, it's not going to be effective.
I think online events are a good option if they're done well. I've been to some really great ones, and I've been to some really thrown together ones. So I lost you.
It's because I muted my microphone so you wouldn't hear the dog going in the background. I went and got her remote so I can just sit here and I was having my hand chewed off and I was like,
I couldn't tell. I couldn't tell that you were getting your hand chewed off. So great job. No, what I was saying is I've been to some really great ones and I've been to some really thrown together ones. So as far as online goes, I feel like you have to be all in, whether you have 2 people that show up or you have 20,000 people that show up. So you need to come with the content, with the quality, with that information to those 2 people just as well as you would have with 300. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And consistency is a big thing, but I wouldn't do a weekly one for me because there's no sense of urgency for somebody to do it this week, because they're like, oh, well, she does one every week. I'll do it next week kind of thing. So for me, I guess for events like that, I think if you have them more spaced out, in my mind, it makes more sense that people would be like, oh my gosh, she only does this once a quarter or something along those lines.
Or I think you could do weekly, but maybe not the same topic weekly. So you could have weekly seminars, and maybe one week it's for first-time home buyers. Maybe the next week it's for people who want to know how to utilize the equity in their house to buy an investment property. So that still keeps you current, but you could rotate topics, like you said, so that people aren't like, oh, she does this every week, I don't have to come today. You're right, you do want to create some type of sense of urgency.
And I think the key to this is obviously how you were saying, like, we want to work smarter, not harder. So record that training. Right. Save the video, post it on YouTube, send it out in your email database, that kind of thing, because that's just going to consistently work for you. So if you are rotating through 4 topics a quarter, you can keep sending out that same training over those 3 months before you refresh and have another one, for example.
Yes, exactly. And I think if you're going to send it out, be careful with that because then they're not going to engage later. You've got to be very strategic about that. So number 2 is doing list swaps. And we're not going to do it in the way that I'm just going to use Foot Locker as an example. I don't know if they do it. I'm just using it as an example. When you give a store, we'll just say a store, your email address, guaranteed they're selling it to someone else. Because all of a sudden you start getting emails from other companies that may have something in common, may not, or it's another company owned by that company. So this is sharing your email databases with other businesses in your sphere. So maybe you have a security company you work with closely, or you have a favorite window guy or a pool person, something like that. What you're going to do is instead of just swapping lists and saying, hey, I'll give you mine if you give me yours, you're going to go into the database you already have and introduce this person and say, hey, this is my favorite vendor for this. Here's why. here's the knowledge that we exchange on a regular basis to help you improve your home or whatever it is, and how we use that to get more value and how I give them value in return. And then you've done that
Mhm.
introduction, so it's not just a all of a sudden they're getting blasted with emails from this other person.
That's a tricky one for me because I feel like if it's not done properly, you're going to end up with a lot of unsubscribe. You know what I mean? Because if you're just blasting out other people's information, I mean, nobody likes to get
Right.
spammed, right? But if it's something like you said that leads directly into what they're already trying to accomplish, for example, um, in our line of business, we're doing a first time home buyer seminar, for example, right? And then the connection that I make with them is a lender that sends out an informational video once a week, that kind of thing. That's just going to piggyback off of what I'm trying to support them in, which will then translate into wow, she's really setting us up for our future success in buying a home.
Yeah. Or even selling a home. Like one of the examples I heard somewhere was like if you it's a say it's a pool vendor. One of the pieces of advice they can give you is how to increase the value of your home by installing a pool. Is it worth it? Is it going to give you the equity back versus what you're spending? So if you can give people guidance on that, or your vendor can, like I think it's a good way to do it. You just have to be strategic so it doesn't come across as, oh, I'm selling you or stuff like that. Like, because we all know that doesn't work.
Right. Something else that would be a good idea, and actually Alyssa's really good at this because she does them a few times a year, is the community drives,
Yes.
to get involved with specific neighborhoods. Specific people are seeing your face more and more often. You just did a food drive recently, didn't you?
Yeah. So every fall we do a food drive. And then what we do is we print a flyer and we go to a local grocery store and they donate all of the paper bags. So this year I think we did just under 400. We This year we narrowed it down to one neighborhood. I think we went a little too big last year and it was a little too much. But you just donate that or deliver that flyer. You don't even have to knock on the door. We leave it at the front door, stapled to that paper bag. Put a QR code on it to scan that takes them to a Google document. So we get name, address, email, phone number. We tell them, hey, like email and phone number we're using in case we need to communicate about this, which is truthful. Because then what we did was we picked 2 days where we would pick up. So we said we'll be back either this day or that day. So once we get all those addresses back, we create a quick map of, okay, this is what we're targeting today. This is what we'll hit the next day. We communicate that with them and say, hey, here's what day we're picking your stuff up. Just leave it on the front porch. We will come get it. And then we pick it up and donate it for them. So this year we did Second Harvest Food Bank, and we donated over 500 pounds of food. And
That's a lot.
it's a lot, but it also like, it shows your community that you're giving back. When I door knock or when I do pop buys or things like this, I never am asking for business. You'll never see me drop something. I think we've covered this before. Brenna, you're going to tell me get off your soapbox. You will never see me saying your referrals are what feed my business. No, nope. Um, and this is actually last year we did this, or I did this, and then that's how I met my preferred insurance agent. And then a few months later, we door knocked home equity reports. Same way, we
Mhm.
printed them out, stuffed them in doorways, and that's how we met our preferred lender. And they both live in that neighborhood that I farm, and now we do everything together to split costs. We are actually coming up with something. We're going to do another drive type thing in the spring. But it's a great, it's so easy. You're giving back to the community. You're making it easier for your community to give back. We did talk to the school and the school about possibly doing like a school supply drive. And she said if we were to do that, that it's specific items. So if you're thinking of doing one of these, don't just do it and then show up at the school with a bunch of stuff, because they end up getting stuff they don't need or don't want and have
Mhm.
to get rid of it some way. So make sure you talk to your local school first. But it's super easy. Leave the flyer or post it somewhere. Um, it's much more effective if you actually go door to door versus just posting it online. I've done it both ways. And then set the date, use the Google Drive or Google form that spits out all the information you need, and then pick it up and you donate it for them. You get name, address, email, phone number. It's perfect.
That is wonderful. The Google Forms, it really, I think, so Google is, we all know and love Google, but it really has so many features that for free that you really can tap into.
Yeah,
I used a Google form for the Christmas lights one, and it's just been so easy. So easy. I actually ended up turning off. I had originally like notify me when somebody votes on this because I'm like, oh, it's gonna be so exciting. I want to get to 100 people, and we're over 300 votes right now. So at one night, I was like, my phone was just ding, ding, ding. So I was like, okay, enough is enough.
right.
But that's great. Like community involvement, community support. People are gonna see that. They're gonna recognize that, and they're just going to be either attracted to it or turned off by it. It's going to be one or the other. But the people who are turned off by it are probably not people that me personally want to do business with anyways.
Right.
So I think that it's a great way to get your face out locally because I forget what number they say, but for example, if your database has 150 people, each of those people in your database know another 100 people, right? So essentially, by extension, you could have thousands of people able to be reached by connecting and being a part of your database because people talk. It's the oldest, most most reasonable way of communication, word of mouth.
Yep.
People talk. So whether it's good or bad, it's going to get around.
Exactly.
It's just
Exactly.
how it works.
Yep. And then we followed it up this year. There's a local Christmas parade in that town, and we got a float, and it was expensive. I'm not gonna lie. Like that float was expensive. We each probably between the cost of renting the float and then all the stuff to like throw off the float, we each probably spent close to $500. But it people from that neighborhood were like, "Oh, hey!" Like we could see them in the crowd, like, "We know you." So it gets you out, like you said. It gets your name and your face recognized, which is super important. Okay, what do you think about raffles?
So I have only done one raffle. It was the first year that I had my license, and it wasn't as successful as in my mind. I was like, oh my gosh, people are gonna love this, right? And it just wasn't as successful as I wanted it to be, but I don't think that I necessarily went about it correctly either. So something to revisit for me. But I guess it depends. I've seen agents go and collect donations or purchase items from local shops and things like that and put them together in this big basket and then raffle it off. I've done it, or I haven't done it. I've seen it done where it's just a Visa gift card. So I guess it's one of those things that you kind of have to experiment with and see what your people are liking or what you like to do, really.
Yeah, I was thinking. So I've done small ones. One year where we live, where you and I are kind of, Charlotte is the biggest city. I think that's the easiest way to say where we are. We're a football town. Well, maybe not this season. This is not a good week to say we're a football town. But we are
the poor Panthers.
Yeah. You know it's bad when we gave away our club level tickets gave them away. Anyway, I digress. Last season I paired up with a nonprofit that I support locally. It's a dog rescue or animal rescue. They had a dog come in that needed major medical attention and they were short on funds. I took our preseason tickets for the Buffalo game and raffled them off. And all I said was, screenshot me your donation. For every, I think it was $10 you donate, you get one entry into winning these tickets. This was a time where people were still excited about going to these football games. And
right.
It's a cost I already had. We've already paid for our season tickets. I don't go to preseason, so I wasn't going to use them. And I collected names, email addresses, because I said, I put it all over my social media. They put it on theirs. DM me or email me the screenshot of your donation, and then you'll be entered to win. So I got everyone's email addresses, and the charity got the money they needed. And it was really successful. We raised, because it was less than, I think it was less than 24 hours. It was one of those last minute things where I saw their post and was like, hey, I'd love to help. Here's what I can do. And we raised over $500 in 24 hours. And then I just transferred the tickets to that person. This year, I'm actually going to start posting on my social media this year a copy of the 12-week year. So if you're following us, I'm at your homegirl _CLT. Brenna is at the real Brenna Stubbins. Is that what you're?
Real life Brenna.
Real life Brenna. Yes, I am going to give away a copy of the 12-week year. We've talked about it here. I think it's a great book. I think it works for anyone in any business or even your personal life. So I'm going to start marketing that as just a, hey, I'm going to give this away. DM me this word or whatever. Collect those names and addresses, because I want people in my database who are forward thinking, who are goal getters, who want to push forward. I don't want the kind of people. And I'll be interested to see how that works. You can also, like, if you want to, partner with like a local business. A lot of times they want the attention. I never do something where we're charging money. It is always, unless it's going to charity, and then it never touches my bank account. I don't collect it. That, like I said, it is a send me a screenshot so I know you did it, but it goes directly to that organization. And the one thing I think is important too is when you announce the winners, give the other people a freebie of something so they all feel like winners too. So like when I do the 12-week year, obviously someone's going to get a book, but I'm also going to email a template of how to break it down. So, okay, you didn't get the book, but here's the template. So if you want to, go break this down on your own. And if you have questions, reach out and ask. Like, that's going to start a conversation of like, hey, how do I do this? Can I do it without getting the book? Like, stuff like that.
And that leads directly into our last one, is that lead magnet or a downloadable resource. And we were just actually talking about this morning. There's a few different platforms online that you can set up landing pages that they put their name, email address into. And instead of you getting an email that says, hey, you now need to send this PDF to this person, set it up automatically. We live in a world where automation is one of the very crucial keys to success. Okay, so when somebody hits submit, we are an instant gratification kind of crowd. If I'm online, I'm like, oh, I get this freebie, and I put in my information and I don't have it in my inbox in 3 minutes, I forget about it. I move on to the next thing. I find someone else, right? So there are platforms that you can set it up to be automatic. They put in their information. It automatically sends them an email that says, hey, thank you for your interest. You can edit it to say whatever you want. This is my freebie on 7 things you need to do to get your house ready for winter. You know, that kind of thing. And it's automatically downloadable. It's a link, PDF. It'll go right. You can open it up on your phone, your laptop, your computer, whatever the case may be. But I do think that automation is very, very important.
Yes, and I think you made a good point. It needs to be something of value. If it's something that is like overwhelming or they're not going to look at right then it's not what you want to do. I think one of the good ones, like great ones I saw for the holiday season was a list of not only ideas for Elf on the Shelf, but the list of supplies needed to execute those ideas. I was like, I didn't do it, but I saw another person do it. I was like, that's genius. It's done, because all of these parents are out here scrambling. Do you do Elf on the Shelf?
I do. We do, yes. And I saw one of those this year, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm doing that next year.
Yeah, I'm not even a mom, but like I know that takes so much stress off of everyone else. Like, here it is. Here's your supply list. Here's the ideas. You get done. Print it off.
Yeah, and you can just, it's easy to just you're like, oh, well, I'll move it. It's not that big of a deal. But listen, coming up with different things, and I'm a last minute girly. I really, really am. So the night of, I'm like, oh, what are we going to do tonight? You know what I mean? Like on Pinterest and
Right.
on
Do I
YouTube
have
and
marshmallows? Travis, go get
right.
marshmallows.
Do the kids have toy dinosaurs? So it's just one of those things that I actually, it's in the works. I've already started creating the list. It has to be, so I'm gonna make it cutesy before next year,
Right,
but
right.
I've already started creating that list because I was like, that is genius and it's so helpful.
Mm-hmm.
The other one that I saw floating around is very, again, hyper local. Here are 10 places to see Santa
Yep,
this month.
yep,
You know what I mean? This is where Santa is gonna be. Pick one.
yep.
And that's
And
amazing for people who are trying to get pictures with Santa. They're out, they know he's going to be at the mall this week, but they don't have time to go to the mall. It's just easy. It's so easy.
and if you want to ninja both of those, so for the elf on a shelf, add a link to an Amazon list. Boom, done. In their shopping cart, sold. Like they don't even have to go to the store. All the supplies they need are there. If you want to ninja move the Santa one, if people have to sign up for that, include the links. Don't make them look for it. Two other great ideas I saw are great neighborhoods to go see Christmas lights. I thought that was a great idea. And then, why did my brain just quit? Oh, what was the other one I saw? Oh, um, Christmas parade schedule. If you live in an area where there's multiple Christmas parades, I saw this one floating around and it was amazing. It was here's where the parades are, here's what time they start. That's awesome because I used it because I was doing some like guerrilla warfare marketing or guerrilla marketing at these parades. I have them all listed out on my calendar and I just went and handed stuff out at every parade. So those things like that are super, and those are things you can do in every season. So it doesn't have to be winter holiday specific. It could be, hey, here's the 4th of July parades, or here's, I don't know, the back to school events. Here's each, look, if football's a thing in your area, here's when their homecomings are. Here's the local, if marching band is big in your town, here's their schedule for competitions this year. So if you don't live nearby anymore, go to here's when they're going to be in your town. I think all that stuff makes it easy for people. Then they don't have to Google it. Um, yeah.
Something else like that is season specific. You could have one that has all of the local sports signups for kids. I'm always more like kid and family focused because that's just something that I'm searching for,
Right.
So come spring when it's softball and soccer, like here are the local YMCA. We've got a few different rec centers that are all part of our county. Here they are. Here are the registration links.
Yep.
Knock yourself out.
I think you made a very good point there. Something we've kind of touched on a couple times here, but what really want to hit home is whatever you're giving out or the events you're hosting or the vendors you're bringing in for your list swaps, your community drives, right back to you're targeting your avatar. So Brenna works with a lot of families because that's where she's at in life. I work with families too, but not always necessarily who I want to work with. So make sure whatever you're delivering, whatever raffle you're doing, whatever community drive, bring it back to the avatar of the client you want to work with.
Mm-hmm. And it's one of those things. If you're already doing it, there's a 98% chance that there's other people out there looking and researching for those same things.
Yep.
So if it's something that I'm already doing for my family, it's like a win-win. It's two birds with one stone, because I'm getting that information for something that I need personally and turning it around and sharing that information to be a support inside our community while gaining connections. And that's how your business will be sustainable, is through connections and through people. We need people in our business, and the more connections you're able to make through being a helpful human, the better it's going to be.
Yes. Yep. And it should always be something of value, even if, and the value doesn't have to be providing information or something financial. Like the value could be you're donating to your community with a food drive. But I think the most important point here, and I'm going to wrap it here if you're cool with this, is a database is useless if you don't utilize it. So as you're working through the holidays, this is going to come out right after the new year. I think as you're thinking of these and how you're going to utilize it or what you want to do, make sure you're also thinking about how you're going to utilize these email addresses, phone numbers, names once they're in your database. And if you're not sure how to do that, we're going to talk about that next week of how we take our database and we utilize it to convert that into leads. And this is not always a short game. This can be a very long game. Like Brenna said, you have some from when you started 3 years ago that you are still nurturing in there. Because if you don't utilize it, it's just names and emails sitting there doing nothing. And we don't want to put all of this energy out there to not have it turn into sales eventually.
Right, right. So, yeah, next week I think we'll dive in a little bit more on setting yourself up for success with this because it's just like anything. It's consistency, it's commitment, and if you are throwing together something at the last second, like that elf on the shelf example, I saw it and I was like, oh, I could do that, right? But it would have been a week late, like we're talking the 7th of December, and I'm gonna throw together something to put out there. Could I? Yes, but it's going to be something for next year. So Thanksgiving, it's getting posted. We're planning ahead. And that just is like, oh, you'll remind them, oh, she's already 6 steps ahead. We're not, because you don't want to hit people after they've already done half of the work and then you show up for the rest. You want to catch people ahead of time. So now you're going to want to start, we're in January. So let's start thinking Valentine's Day, and we'll get into that on the next episode too, because you want to be a step ahead. You want to be supportive of them because you've already done the work.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Well, on that note, y'all, have a good day. And we will see you all next week.
Next week. All right.
On Tuesdays.
Tuesday. See you later.